the roll call. Mayor Wiest.
Here.
Vice Mayor DeGoya.
Running a little late.
Mr. Anthoven.
Here.
Mr. Jim Massey.
Here.
Diane Banger Sandu.
She did send something in that said she wasn't going to be here.
You did.
Yeah, she's out of the country.
You guys got to change. Oh, Rick again.
Vice Mayor DeGoya.
Here. I see him.
Okay, we're doing a roll call. He walked in right at the right time. Mr. Bob Polito.
Here.
And new member, Mr. Jeffrey Lee.
Here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And I'd like to open up, there's public comments. See none, I'd like to move forward.
Okay, and as I mentioned before we went on camera, there's, since you're out in absence of chair and vice chair, we staff just opened the meeting, and every July, the commissions and committees select their new chair and new vice chair. They can either move the vice chair up, or they can shift seats any way they would like. So at this point, I'd like to open nominations for chair.
I'd like to nominate Bob Polito to be chair.
Are there any other nominations on the floor for chair? You have a nomination and a second. Congratulations, Mr. Polito. You can now handle the vice chair.
Congratulations.
See how easy that was?
So the same thing, we nominate for vice chair.
Correct.
I have a nomination for vice chair. Which one do you guys want? Okay, I'll nominate myself for vice chair. I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Congratulations.
Now we go back to item 3. Approval of the minutes for March 11th. Everybody had a chance to read them? I think we approved the draft. There's one typo in Title 5, the word council is repeated. I don't see anything else wrong with it. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to April 9th. Again, we reviewed the draft at the last meeting. Fairly brief regarding the audit interviews. Any corrections or? Can I have a motion to approve? So moved. Second?
Aye. Second.
All in favor? And finally, the draft minutes of the May 13th meeting. So this is the first time we've seen these. I didn't have any problem with the substance necessarily. I think there was some discussion about the property tax revenue being projected 4% being on the low side. But I believe I did ask for the second or third time some additional information on OPEB, which I guess now we're about to get somebody to update our data.
Yes, that'll be discussed in our final item on the agenda.
I've also been unable to get any information other on our investment in cars. I went to the website, and when you type in Atherton or the town of Atherton or anything else that's got the word Atherton in it, it just looks at it. So maybe they sent our money to Mexico or something. I don't know.
No, we get monthly statement updates from them on our trust, and that'll be part of the item number 8, updating what's in the account right now, what we've earned, and then we will continue to
We'll see
periodically.
that. We'll see that today.
I'll give you an update, and then the next meeting when we do the refresh, I can bring in, show you a statement from PARS.
All right. So I didn't see anything else wrong with these minutes. Motion to approve. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Before we go to the next item, I have a question.
Yes.
I noticed once again that there's no place for other business, and we've passed public comment, and I forgot, I want to raise an issue. Can we go back to this public comment?
Is it a comment as a committee member, you mean?
It's come as a committee member.
Yeah, you can make comments. We can
Okay.
do that.
This has come up before. I was in a meeting in Redwood City the other day, and Jeff Hardy, ex-mayor, was mentioning that Redwood City gets 18% back on their property tax. I think our number is considerably less than that. We've raised this issue before, and we get mumbo jumbo from the county. I'm not sure what the number is, but I mean, he was clearly said they get 18%, and the current mayor, Jeff G, said, yeah, we get 18%. I think so we get something like 7%. The answer is why? I just don't get it.
We get,
And I know we've got
get over
letters
8.
back, and I guess I just don't understand.
We get over 8, and we can't discuss it because it's not on the agenda item, but I can give you some feedback on it if you like. We get more than 8, as Vice Mayor DeBoer mentioned, and some communities get different shares based on when their tax rate areas were put together, and whether they provide sewer or water or fire or police or any of those other services. We don't, some of ours is partitioned off to the Menlo Fire District because they get their share. It would normally come to us.
So we're set that it's legit, then, because I was just sitting there going, well, wait a minute. Yeah, for sure.
They have both fire and library
Okay.
that we don't get.
And library.
The library's another one.
Yeah, okay, I understand, I was just, thank you.
All right, so I guess we're to item 6. We've got an auditor, we hired an auditor, we've already started working in June, and
Yes, I'll take this one over. This item is for discussion of our 13-14 fiscal year-end audit process. The auditor's here 2 times a year. The first time is the interim audit phase, which they were here June 23rd for a whole week, and then they come back in November for the final audit of our financial statements for the fiscal year 13-14. The reason for this on the item is that they've just finished the preliminary phase of the audit, and this is just to see if the committee would like to meet with the auditor to discuss the findings of the preliminary phase, discuss the scope of the audit, discuss any memorandum of internal controls, discuss any statements that are coming up regarding the GASB rules. So this is just this is the time to see if the committee would like to either have a special meeting to meet with the auditor to discuss the initial phase of the audit and going forward, or maybe create an ad hoc committee to meet with the auditor. Is it something that you all feel that you want to do? Obviously, it's something that's a communication that they can meet with you all. They will do an exit interview with us as staff, but as a communication to the council and body, which would be under the audit finance committee. They can meet with the committee as either a whole, or we can do it ad hoc. So that's the reason for this presentation, for them to come back and report if the council and the committee so choose.
well, my own opinion is it would be remiss if we didn't take this opportunity. In which manner, I don't have a strong opinion.
But I think particularly with the new member who's never gone through the thing.
I'd be happy to be part of whatever group is formed. And may I ask, is the auditor requesting the meeting that in an ordinary course of activity, do they like to meet with the financial audit and audit committee of the municipalities that they audit?
Yes, and customarily they could meet with 1 or 2 members of the council, or if there's a committee, a finance committee, they would meet with members of the finance committee that to discuss the audit, what's upcoming, what they did find in the preliminary audit, and go from there. And they're going to do an exit interview with us and also provide the SA, they call it SAS 14, with the governing body to kind of go over.
They don't do their
controls.
control letter until after the November audit, is that correct, or?
No, they're working on it right now. We should get it in the next couple of weeks, and that will be our response on it. And also they'll come in and take the time to either discuss that internal memorandum, internal control memo, whether there's any major findings, and they'll discuss their scope, discuss any statements that come forward at this new year that are implemented by GASB. So yeah, it's basically to sit down and discuss with the governing body what is going on in this fiscal year audit, and what they're looking on, what they're focusing on, what controls, what procedures they're looking at.
Plus, we did get a new managing partner. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we haven't
well, met with her other than in the ad hoc committee, so I would think that it would be wise for us, the whole committee.
That's fine.
I think that's a good idea.
I agree, just to do, make sure you do everything diligence, and you know, I've been on the audit committee since through several years.
Great. And that was one of our two choices, either call a special committee meeting for the whole finance committee or create an ad hoc committee. And what I'm hearing is the committee would like to set up a meeting and meet with her as a whole. So I'll do that. Do you all have any, I guess, can you get back to me, or maybe if you know what time would be appropriate?
What were you thinking? What time frame were you thinking?
Probably the next, if we could, maybe next Thursday, the 23rd, or...
It would be better after the control letter came out, I would think.
Yes, and I'll get with them on that.
So, and give people time to review the control letter.
Okay,
I think that's
Yeah,
important.
something to look
at, yeah.
okay. So I'll communicate with that with them, see what their schedule's like, and then get a couple of dates, and I'll send out emails to all of you, and then we can decide when we can get it.
Any planned vacations, big ones?
I would plan vacation all the time.
Whether you take it or
I'll
not.
be gone from the 24th for 2 weeks, so.
You have a capable vice chair.
It's like Shasta practically empty, I won't be quitting.
Bottom fishing.
First year in 30 years, we haven't had a move up there.
Wow. Wow.
Since the last route, 7 or 8, 7
Wow.
Okay, so then,
I'm out that, well, I'll be back for the council meeting that isn't happening on the 20th.
Right, thanks for showing up.
so maybe it's safe to say, maybe, and I'm thinking with their, coming out with their internal control letter, probably August,
End of August.
and I'll make sure that it coincides.
Mid-August to late August, fine with me. Yeah.
We'll do that. Sounds good. So we'll go ahead and go forward with having a special finance committee sometime in August, and I'll follow up with all of you.
No, I forgot mine. I left it sitting there on the dash. I was too busy downloading the song. So that's it on item 6, so we move on to item 7, that
Yes.
this discussion is spending our ERAF money.
Yes, sir. What this is an informational item to the finance committee, as was presented in this memo, this report, is that tomorrow, this is going before the council for a consideration to make an OPEB contribution using our fiscal year 13-14 ERAF funds. The excess ERAF funds were $1,020,000, and it's council is considering to authorize to make this contribution to our OPEB trust.
Tomorrow, did you say?
Yes, sir. And so, I attached a copy of the staff report that's going before the council tomorrow, and this is just to update the committee on what's going on with contribution to our PARS trust. We currently have made, back last year, $1.299 million towards the trust. In September of 2013, the council also authorized another $2 million towards the trust. And with this contribution of the ERAF in this 14-15 fiscal year, it's another $1,020,000. So the total contribution with tomorrow's, if it's authorized, would be about $4.3 million towards the trust. And with that being said, once we contribute that, we're recommending the council maybe to cap it at a contribution about $5 million towards the PARS trust, which we believe that this 14-15 fiscal year, the ERAF, using the ERAF funds, we would be able to contribute up to that amount, making it so about another $700,000 towards the trust to make it $5 million. And also we anticipate, because we're making these contributions, we've already contributed up to $4.3 million, that we will do another refresh of our actuarial and our OPEB actuarial. So this is just an informational item to let you all know what's transpiring, and that we're, as a council, the council's tackling our long-term liabilities, which is a priority, and one of those is the OPEB contribution.
What effectively you're saying is the council's going to approve it just like you guys slid the $2 million last year.
But I think we want to hear what you guys have to say.
I am strongly opposed,
Okay.
because I still want to come back to not doing enough money on our capital and infrastructure issues in this town, and we're continuing to fund pension plans, and we should put at least some of this ERAP money into, again, like classic roads and streets. You get that, my roads and streets pitch again.
That's
Into infrastructure projects in this town. So I strongly do oppose this for that specific reason. I think we're in good enough shape now that we can spend some of that money. We looked at the infrastructure needs a couple meetings ago, and they were huge. And we're still continuing to put money into pension plans and everything. So I think I come back to fix the potholes.
Has our annual required contribution been adjusted based on the money we just put into this trust?
We've adjusted what we've contributed, yes, but we want to do this actuarial refresh so that we have an actual final report that shows this will be our arc. We believe when we do this refresh with the new amount that we've contributed up to the 4 million, if the 1 million is approved, that arc will go down, which would be good for.
Well, if I
the town.
understand it right, it has to go down.
Right.
I presume the ARC has a component for unfunded liability and a component for funding as we go,
Mhm.
as of the way we do things now.
Yeah, about, of the ARC is what,
582,000.
182,000, and maybe about 120, 130 of that is active employees for potential future, and then the remainder, 400 and something thousand, is for the pay-as-you-go for currently retirees and spouses. That amount, we can't not pay. It either has to be paid from the irrevocable trust, or it's got to be paid from the town's operating budget. When we do the refresh, we should get a better idea what that number going forward is to fund our 7.7 plus liability that's out there. That could get reduced, thereby reducing our ARC. What it won't reduce though is that $400,000 number. So what
But if
we're,
we're doing a refresh, if I can just jump in, that's even more support for not doing this tomorrow night. Let's look at what the refresh uses, and we have a clearer picture.
well, we know that of the 7.7 million, 5 million plus
Right.
is
Retired.
retired.
Right.
What we don't know is what the damage or what the changes are going to be for the active employees. So if we get to that $5 million number, that's a number we know we have to hit.
Right.
Beyond that, we don't know. So the refresh should tell us what the beyond that is.
Okay. So I still don't know my position.
Yeah, right. But we have reduced our current operating budget by about 100,000 or so a year because we already put $3.4 million
Right,
into this
right.
thing.
And again, it's part of it.
I'm not sure, the 400K portion of the 500 and some odd K, that's for the retired people.
Mhm.
And when we put in the last contribution, without having a study made, how did you know how much you could reduce the ARC?
Well,
It was, we had an unfunded liability portion when we did the last refresh, and that was with the 1.2 million contribution. What we want to do the refresh is with the 2 million that we did in September, and the possibility of another 1
So
million.
the ARC was calculated, see, I sat through that meeting, but it was a while back. The ARC was calculated with the 1.3 million
Yes.
plugged in.
And not including this additional. And also, another thing that we want to include in the refresh is there was a new MOU with the police department that happened last October. So we want to kind of, the town has been in a couple years of transition. So we feel like this refresh is kind of finally catching the whole umbrella from changes. From when we did this refresh, again, we only had barely going to contribute 1.2 million towards the trust. So now we have more money committed to the trust. Now the MOU for PD, the unrepresented employees, reduction in retiree health. So we want to make sure that that all gets captured, and we do feel it's going to reduce our ARC, and also we're focusing, like George had mentioned, that we're focusing on capturing that, paying that $5 million that we owe already, that we know is current, and putting in the trust is probably a prudent and smart decision to do in tackling that issue.
So in short, we guessed.
I'm sorry.
In short, we guessed. that of the 572 or so thousand annual required contribution, 140K or so was for active employees that were future benefits. 400 and something was for already retired. We knew we had to pay the 400 and something. But that 140K was a component of 2 million plus in the 7.7 overall number, which we'd already hit. We'd already funded that OPEB liability to that degree. So we knew if we could get rid of that payment easily, because we had to pay the other one anyway.
So what I'm missing here, and which is what I've been trying to get and haven't been able to, is what are the returns on all this dough we're putting in a pot somewhere?
Right now.
I've seen several news releases, there are options on investments,
Right, we're in the moderate
Please don't-
index plus.
moderate, so there's an equity portion.
There's a mix. There's a mix, but in a report that we've already earned 188,000 on our investment, so about 5%. And our study says 6%. So, and that's something that, when we created the GASB, the trust, the OPEB trust, that it was under a moderate index.
So who did the picking and choosing of what our investment mix was gonna be? 'Cause I don't ever remember that coming up.
That was probably, I think, when they did it in 2011, fall of 2011, or, I'm sorry, May of 2012, I believe.
That was
When they
before your
created-
time, too,
right.
apparently.
When they created it, I believe it was the council at the time, there's a selection sheet of what they decided to do when they created that trust. And part of that was the moderate plan. Going forward, and I've communicated and had a meeting with PARS last week, we're gonna create a guideline and of within this moderate index, what they can or can't do as far as investing. And I'll bring that back to the finance committee in our next meeting.
So we're gonna give them 2 million more bucks, I think we should do that pretty quickly.
Well, we've already given them 2 million. We're giving them another million. That's what we're gonna give, 1
They
million.
gave them 2 million last
Excuse
year.
me, yeah. Before we give them another million, because, I mean, you know, a million here, a million there, pretty soon you're talking about
Right.
some dough.
And they understand, they will have meetings with us every year. They also understand that every time we contribute funding, there's a mechanism where we don't invest it all at once. We do it in every month in pieces. So it's not, here's $1 million, put it in tomorrow. So we're limiting our exposure as well. So we're looking at that. We have investment managers within PARS that look at that for us.
My look at it lately has been every time we seem to have surplus money, we shove it into those funds instead of in the infrastructure.
Right.
That's my look at it.
Which
And 2 million last year, 1 million this year. Is it 1 million next year? Is it 2 million next year that doesn't go into infrastructure? You know, what I'm saying is, we gotta look at this.
right, and also within our budget.
I'm not saying we don't know it or we shouldn't do it, I'm just saying right now, I do not think it's a prudent thing.
No, and we'll, and a reminder too, in our adopted budget 14-15, we did the 28 parcel tax. So the capital projects are getting about 1.4 million this year, and last year they got 700,000. So we're understanding.
Last year, this fund got 2 million, and now you're only giving them another 1.4 million. So even the percentage ratios don't even come close between the two issues.
Well, the 2 million was somewhat arbitrary.
Right.
And this is just happens to be tied to,
They gave us funds.
They gave us.
Money came in.
I mean, I don't really have a problem with it given the size of the potential problem. I would have a problem going a whole lot farther because A, you should have earnings in these accounts that, quite frankly, I don't see, you haven't proved to me yet that's been accounted for. And secondly, I always have an issue with making today's taxpayers responsible for what might be other taxpayers' portion of what we owe, whether it's the guys that should have paid before us or the guys that should be paying after us, which is what would happen if we become overfunded. So I don't have a problem with this ERAF money, but I definitely think we need to get a better handle on what the earnings are gonna be, what the ARC's gonna be, what the savings are gonna be by pre-funding. before we commit any other money to this, particularly in light of the growing appetite of the city council to do capital projects, which I'm not saying is bad.
Alan, anything? Jeff?
I heard a little bit about this at the last council meeting, and I'm in favor of it. I think that it's a prudent way to use money that was a windfall from Sacramento. And I think that the returns coming from the investment industry, I think the returns, if they're risk adjusted, I think they're pretty good in the current environment. Unfortunately, they're pretty good. And I sympathize about the capital improvement projects, but I also think that I did notice the increase in the spending by the city. I think that's good. And it's also easier for taxpayers and residents to understand how capital improvement is a function of things like the parcel tax. And this is clearly something that the ERAF by definition is clearly something that was a windfall. So.
Yeah, and I think that that's part of our focus is the long-term financial stability for the town, is understanding our revenue streams, and ERAF is one that we're lucky, we're one of 3 counties to get this money. Eventually that could go away, and we're using it as we're able to use these funds to look at long-term liabilities, possibility of capital projects, and other areas of priorities.
What are the strengths and weaknesses of doing the refresh before versus after adding more funds to the trust?
I think having more funds in the trust when we do the refresh, if we can have 4.3 million showing that we've contributed cards, I think that would definitely benefit us, rather than if we say we don't do it and we say, okay, we've only contributed this much, and then they come out with this study and we say, well, wait a minute, well, let's do it again, but we're going to give you that 1 million that we didn't give you. I think that, one, we're tackling the issue of the OPEB liabilities, and yes, 5 million is what we already earned past retirees that have earned that service. So getting to that point, I think, is a plus for us, because we're tackling that issue, and we can see what our normal costs will be going forward, what the cost will be for the health portion, their rates and what they determine when we do the study. Mortality rates will come into effect with the study as well. So I think us showing that we've contributed this 1 million, all this at this 4.3 million that could potentially be that we do this actuarial, I think it would be a plus for the town, and it would reduce it more than if we didn't have that. I think it would show a good reduction.
If we get the fund to a higher amount, at some point we'll be either able to withdraw a portion of it from the revocable trust, a portion of that pay-as-you-go from the revocable trust, or all of it from the revocable trust, assuming we earn our investment rate return, instead of the town's operational budget. So the more we've got in there, the more we can draw down on a regular basis, as opposed to.
So if I understand what you just said, that once there's an amount in this irrevocable trust, we can use that to pay off part of the ARC?
Yes.
Can we use it to pay off all of the ARC?
Yeah, but then the fund would disappear quite rapidly, given the size of our park.
And I think, Bob, you mentioned in the past that we want to get to a point where we're not too far down. We want to still maintain a certain degree of O. And if this was to go through, are we at a comfortable amount at this point?
Yeah, I think so. A little bit more than half funded. I mean, you'd have to compare it to some of these other like-type communities, but I'll bet that would compare very favorably from the stuff I've seen.
I think we're a great step ahead of other communities our size.
Sure.
Because we're tackling that issue. 2011, there was nothing in the trust. Now we're talking about having 4.3 million in it. We're taking a great step. We're tackling our long-term.
And actually, I'm hearing a caution from the finance committee, at least from going through the school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe enough is enough.
You could go to the PAR's website if you haven't actually. They've got a bunch of marketing hype in there, all the reasons that you ought to go with their particular product and all the advantages and so on and so forth. But I probably misspoke before, technically, if we overfund, we can get that money back, as I understand it, if there's no, if there are no longer any beneficiaries that are owed money, the money gets reverted to the city. So that's not necessarily an argument not to overfund, but I'd be comfortable with this level of funding for some time, I think.
And we've changed our benefit packages for employees, so we're not accruing that
Same amount.
the same amount every year. That's significantly dropped, and that's what the refresh will be able to tell us as well. That'll drop that $2 million difference, for
So-
sure.
And going to Jim's point on the capital programs, we have set aside a certain amount of money in the current budget, which is more than we had set aside last year for the capital program. But isn't there also a significant unallocated general fund?
$4 to $5 million, I believe.
Right.
Right now, it was just 1 million that we received in ERAF, it's about a little bit over 5 million.
And those are.
So after the ERAF is put in, there'd be about $4 million that is available for capital programs if we want to use it.
It's beyond our reserves.
It's beyond our reserve, that's exactly.
And those are things we're going to be making potentially decisions on as these master plans come out. So, Jim, hold on for us.
And if you find a pothole,
Let us know.
Call George. Call George.
They just fixed my street.
They just fixed mine too, the morning parking. I got fixed first, I got pulled, buddy.
Your street's coming, sorry. Just, of course, that was solely a joke.
They
You guys,
fixed a new guy-
it's all
they fixed a
random.
new guy's
It's
street yesterday.
it's all random. It's
So
all
my street's
random.
on this.
Well, they got mine first.
It's all random. Now you're gonna get your street fixed.
So, I guess the consensus here, if you care about it, sounds like we give our qualified endorsement of this, of contributing this ERAF money to our OPEB's trust. And if anybody has any other comments, I'll move on to the next item, which is your update on the actuarial request, which maybe you've already covered.
We pretty much, yes, we did cover it, so we tackled two birds with one stone. So, again, we reached out to Nicolay Consulting, they did our actuarial last, I've been in communication with them, and we're gonna have, set up a meeting to do the refresh, hopefully, soon, the next couple of days, and let them know what we've contributed so far to the trust, and also the refresh with our new police officers, memorandum of understanding, and kind of get an understanding when we will get that from them. So I'm looking this fall, we will get this updated refresh, and we'll have an actuarial report that we can be proud of and go forward. What's currently in the PARs is 3.4 million, 3,480,000. And again, we've earned $188,000 on that, so it's about 5% that we've earned in what's in there that we've contributed. So that so far only includes the $2 million in September and the $1.299 million we contributed last year.